the first conversation I had with him was like, look, you got 4 million odd followers on Instagram, but you're renting from the platform. You don't actually own these followers. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, if they shadow ban you or delete your account tomorrow, what are you going to do? And he just sat there and he kind of slumped into his seat. And he's like, I never thought about it like that. So I was like, you need to migrate that into your ecosystem. What we've done is created experiences for him around his album launch. So it's just like his label's giving him a few $1 million budget to market this out. Now that means that it's his chance to codify the rules and principles of his fans into his fan club.
Hey, it's Conor Svensson here, founder and CEO at Web3 Labs. This is a conversation I had with Gurps Rai, CEO of droppTV. droppTV is an interactive media platform that enables viewers of video content to perform on-screen shopping with just a simple click. In our conversation, we discussed why Web3 is so compelling for artists and fans, simplifying onboarding to Web3, and how Web2 platforms are being used as launchpads to Web3. Gurps has been involved in several crypto-orientated projects as an early investor in the hub culture ecosystem and originally came from a financial background, which made our conversation particularly fascinating. If you like this podcast, please remember to subscribe, rate and leave a review. This will ensure more people continue to learn from these great Web3 innovators. Gurps, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here on the podcast today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I always want to start by talking about people's own journeys with Web3, how they first got interested in the space. So what were the catalysts for that for you? And then what led to you going from this being like a passing interest to being immersed full time in the space?
Right. So it's actually happened the other way around for me, right? I bumped into a crypto evangelist in like 2010, 11. I was in a boardroom and I had no idea. My background's finance, right? So I'm sitting in a boardroom and I'm listening to this guy tell a bunch of suits, as he referred to them, about something that's going to kill their business, which was Bitcoin at that time. And everybody was, it was a foreign exchange company, right? So like everybody's sitting there like, wait, what? And, you're talking to people of a certain age that, adoption of new technology and new things is always hard, right? Of that kind of generation. And he was just so evangelical about what he was working on and what he was doing and his belief around that. And I was like, you know what? Let me delve a little deeper with this guy. Maybe his delivery was a little off, right? And it just so happens I gave him my business card, and he actually never responded. He never reached back out to me, and he got pushed out the board pretty much in a politest way possible. And it turns out that me and him lived on the same street. And I went in to go get like a coffee or something in the store. And I bumped into him, and I said, "Wait, I know you." And a few weeks later, we started talking. And then I asked him. I said, "Look, you teach me what you're talking about, and then I can then go to the firm and then teach those guys, but I know how to talk to them." I was like, the way you came across was the wrong way of doing it. And he started explaining to me about the idea of blockchain, Bitcoin, and he sent me this 8-page white paper, which I didn't read for weeks until he started pulling key bits out of the white paper. That I was like, hey, maybe I should read this thing. I read about it and I got really, really interested, but he was working on his own kind of blockchain infrastructure and kind of digital currency and he had his own ideologies. And it's crazy because when I knew I was coming on here and I started thinking about that moment, that couple of years, my first few years of knowing him, everything that he was doing, everybody's doing today. And I was like, wow, what a futurist. Like it's crazy. And it was really his vision made me invest in his startup. And by virtue of investing in his startup, I actually I invested into Bitcoin very early. So not caring about, I wasn't there to make money. I was really there to learn because I felt like I was at the beginning of something. Because, the age that I'm at, I missed the opportunity I felt of, the opportunities that the Jeff Bezoses and all these guys had at that moment, right? So I missed that. I was like, I'm the beginning of something here. And, I really wanted to learn and understand what was going on. And as he kind of, he had this thing called hub culture, and it was like a WeWork, but for crypto heads. And this is in 2011. 2012, right? In London as well. It's crazy. And when I would go there, I would go hang out and I would just see all these really young, very intelligent individuals working on, climate change and different protocols and different ideas. And I was more and more beginning to understand. But the problem is with me, the finance side of me took over, and I was like, wow, you know what? It's an opportunity here to make a lot of money, because it's a lot easier to read those charts, especially back then, than it was the stock market, and especially the currency exchange market, right? And I started focusing on that. And then by then, I was running a family office of family offices in the Middle East, in particular Saudi Arabia. And I slowly started to bleed in, and I think it took me like 4 or 5 years to get these family offices to start messing around and playing with crypto with their investments. And I think it was 2015 when Gavin Wood. I come across something Gavin Wood was talking about. The founder of Polkadot and a co-founder of Ethereum, I believe. He was talking about Web 3.0. That's like when I first kind of heard about it. And again, I was just like, yeah, whatever. Like, where's the money in this, right? And then I continuously kept meeting up with Stan Starnaker, who founded Hub Culture, who's the guy that got me into crypto and Web3 without my ignorance knowing that it was Web3 at the time. And he kind of really started explaining the infrastructural shift. And he's like, you always love being early, so you told me from the start, there's anything I can get into early, let me know, because I want to learn and then scale into it. And then listening to his kind of thoughts around it. And then I started, thank God for YouTube, right? I started just looking into what the possibilities of Web 3.0 is. And then I met my current CTO of Drop, and he's a blockchain professor. And then being with him every day and learning what Web3 was about really helped us shape our business, right? We didn't start off as, oh my God, we're going to come in and we're going to disrupt streaming for Web3. That wasn't it. We were just trying to connect the consumer on the couch, with the product in front of them on TV. And then we started saying, wait a minute, let's change our mindset a little bit and start thinking about how we could use a Web3 philosophy around this and future-proof our business. And that's kind of how it really happened. So I went from being a crypto head and learn and just sitting there thinking, damn, I could trade this and make money all day. And then saying, wait, there's a way bigger vision than just money here. There's something that we could grow and possibly scale into, one of the next legacy companies.
And so in terms of that transition, no doubt when you were working with the family offices, they must have been really happy of the direction you took them there and that whole rabbit hole.
Oh.
But then you with dropTV, like when did you decide that now's the time to just jump in properly and do this, and talk a little bit more about the problem that you're solving there as well, to educate
Sure.
people on that?
Definitely. So look, I've had a weird career, right? Like, I grew up in hip hop, right? When hip hop was nothing, when people used to listen to hip hop and say it's a fad, it's going to be here, it's going to be gone. That's the biggest genre in the world, right? Music. So, I saw a lot of my friends, very talented people, that the struggle that they went through to be able to get to somewhere where they can actually make a living from what their talent does, right? And especially, hip hop is the voice for the underserved, right? The underprivileged. And the things that those kids had to go through, the trauma that they went through just to make it for something that they were better than everybody else at, was really sad for me to watch that. And I tried, like, when I moved to New York, I built a studio that was free for everybody to come use, that had that were buttoned up, that really wanted to make it and not just hang out and abuse this free system. So that I saw that help the kids a little bit, but there was still this big gap between, which I call it like the ocean, where you dived in and you either drowned or you made it, right? You swam across to the other side, which was getting a deal, becoming a star, and so forth. So then I started looking at the mechanics of the music industry, right? You got these kind of companies that you could call middlemen, right? And the problem with those middlemen is that they make all the money, and then they give this small slither of money across, and everybody has to share that pie, right? And then out of that pie, you got the big dogs, the Drakes, the Nicki Minaj's, and all these guys, and the Taylor Swifts and everybody that makes money. And then you got everybody else. And I was like, well, that's not fair, right? Because I don't really listen to commercial hip hop, right? I listen to the kids that are kind of unsigned hype, because I like seeing that rawness of their storytelling and how they make the music. And I'm like, well, how can I make this kid money? So in my head, I started seeing a culture of these kids were like, in my day, you would pull up outside a club, open your trunk, and sell your mixtape, right? And then obviously technology shifted, so you couldn't do that anymore. So then I started seeing these kids, especially like ASAP Rocky and the ASAP Mob and these guys, right, that really made money from selling their merch because they knew how to dress. They were, creative in the way that they made their clothes. They would take old clothes and turn them into new clothes, and cool stuff like that. They would take old brands like that were dead, like a Coogee, and make it relevant because of the way they put it together. So then they started making their own merch and selling their own merch, and that's how they were funding themselves, right? And I thought that was amazing. So then I started looking at like how do they connect with their consumer, and it was just very similar to back in my day when you would pull up outside a club, open your trunk, and sell these CDs, right? And so I said, there's got to be a better way, right? So I put myself in the consumer's like side of the journey, right? And I was like, okay, I'm watching this ASAP Rocky music video, right, in 2014. Now, how do I go buy what he's wearing? I go to Google and I start looking at Google, and I can't find anything, right? So I was like, there has to be a way to connect that desire of me wanting to support that artist, whoever that is, and be able to make that purchase. And that's where the genesis really came from. And then a friend of mine was, working with Drake at the time, and Drake had that annoyingly infectious song called Hotline Bling. And he was wearing this red puffer jacket. And for some weird reason, in that moment, watching it, I thought, you know what? I like that jacket. I could pull that off. No, I couldn't. Thank God I didn't buy it. But then I was trying to find the exact SKU. And again, I couldn't find it. And then it brought it all back to me. And I was like, wait, someone needs to fix this. So when I started looking at, why all these companies, Google and everybody that you have, why have they not figured it out? And that's what kind of kicked off the journey. And then I realized why they hadn't figured it out. And also realized why a lot of companies had tried and failed in the past as well. And, infrastructure wasn't there, and that's what I feel like we've gone through the age of infrastructure with Web3, right? With layer 1, layer 2s and everything like that you see now. And we have mature enough infrastructure to be able to deliver what I feel that we're in now, just to start it, is the application era, right? The next bull run I feel that's going to happen in the Web3 economy is going to come from applications, right? And then you're going to get the consumerism side coming, and then it's scale from there. So I felt like we had the opportunity to create an application that not only is going to help the new generation of artists that are coming up, not just in hip hop but everywhere, right? Creators. And it's also gonna, the time was then to start building the front end, and then wait and pick the right kind of infrastructure to build around it, whether it's Ethereum or Solana, whatever you want to build it on. But now it's mature enough for us to be able to plug into that. But we've done the hard work, I feel, in building this kind of the application side of it, and now it's starting to kind of build everything around the application to make it seamless and make it viable for scale.
So to go into the specifics of droppTV, like you go on the website and you articulate it really well there. It says videos you can shop, and as you say, like you've got these music videos, the products and so on are available there. What's kind of the key part for the Web3 angle with it? Because on the surface, right, you could say, hey, well, why can't you just use some conventional platform for this, or do it in a kind of Web 2 way, right?
Yep. Well, the app you see today is a Web 2 app. It's right. But what's happened is this. So it's a startup still, right? And I'll try to explain that to people all the time. And they think we sit there with piles of cash and we play table tennis all day in this nice office like Google. But it's actually, we've actually had to shift focus just because of business reasons into enterprise. And it's the enterprise side of the business is where we really figured out what we could do with the application in Web3. And on the enterprise side, we're walking these, Fortune 500 companies in the entertainment industry and apparel and so forth through a Web3 experience. But what we've done is actually the learnings that we've done building the app on the app side of things and understanding the consumer and understanding the entire ecosystem of Web3. We are actually like teaching these companies that have, Web3 departments, metaverse departments, and all this stuff like that, like the strategies behind it, right? And then it just so happens for the last 5 or 6 years, we've been building elements of Web 3.0 technology. And then we've kind of started to create this stack that almost feels like an OS, right? So in the past 3 years, our focus has shifted from being an app-based company to being an enterprise company. But the reason why we want to do enterprise because it brings in the cash to help us build the app to get it to where we want it to be, right? Give it the fuel to grow and move. So on the enterprise side of things, we kind of quickly learned of all like the landmines that are there to be able to get a audience from Web 2.0 to 3.0. So in the last, in particular, last 15 months, I would say, we started to create vehicles that we call for on-ramping, right? How do I take Joe Public on the street and get them into a Web3 experience, right? So our board, because some of our investors in Drop are the family office guys that I made a ton of money for, right? In like 2017, in the in one of the bull runs. So they were like, hey, this NFT thing, like my wife was buying crypto kitties and it was hilarious, right? Because I was like, what are you doing? Stop wasting time and effort there. And then she never let me live it down, by the way. So, but our board is like, yeah, hey, why don't we have an NFT marketplace? This is like in 2020. And I'm like, well, I don't want to just do something for the sake of it, right? Everybody else is doing NFT marketplaces, the OpenSeas and everybody like that. And I was like, I don't want to just create another one because then you're going to tell me why is it not scaling? Because there's like a billion people doing it, right? So, but what we did was started looking at how can we make the experience better, right? For especially in the music industry, right? So the biggest issue that we saw was that if you look at, and this came from learnings of working with our enterprise partners, right? Is if I'm like The Weeknd, for instance, or Drake or somebody, if I create my album as an NFT, I'm actually stopping my fans from being able to listen to it because guess what? His fans don't have a MetaMask wallet. They don't know how to get an NFT as an MP3 or an MP4, whatever that may be, and then they used to kind of being able to listen to their music in their Sonos system, in their car, whatever, right? And there was all these barriers to entry, and then we started seeing, you had the success of guys like Tory Lanez that released an album as an NFT for $1, which I thought was genius. The biggest issue was after you bought it. Like once they bought it, the kids are like, all right, now what do I do with it? And they're trying to sell it, and then someone's putting it for $400,000 on eBay, and another person's putting it somewhere on another marketplace for $80, and everyone's trying to. And so that's where we were like, all right, cool. Then there's no home for these kind of NFTs, and that kind of like came from my enterprise side of the business, from watching the music industry trying to figure this out. And then when we actually thought someone had figured it out was when Nas released his NFT project, which kind of allowed you to have ownership in it. But then when I'm sitting, and I'm a Nas fan, so when I'm sitting there, I did a back of the napkin math on it. I'm like, hey, this B-side record has to stream like 100 million times before I make any money, right? So it's like, and you're selling it to me as an investment. So I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me, right? So we've kind of sat back, and what we've done is thankfully made money on the enterprise side. But we've also feel like that we've created a playbook of how to make the application work in a Web3 fashion for people that are native to Web2. So that's kind of been our focus.
Okay, so to talk it through then in terms of the where you have like someone create a music video and there's some merch in there that people can buy, and then how does it kind of, if it's not at this point quite yet, but then it will be no doubt in the future with the Web3 part, what does that kind of look like from the perspective of the creative creating that work and putting it up there, and the actual fans who are engaging with it?
So what we've done now is the community largely lives on like Instagram and TikTok, right, which are Web2 platforms, obviously, right, centralized and everything. So what we're doing with artists right now, like we're working with a Universal Def Jam artist called Dave East that's got this big album coming out in, I believe, Q1 next year. And I don't even know if I was supposed to say that, but it's all good. But so with him, the first conversation I had with him is like, look, you got 4 million odd followers on Instagram, but you're renting them from the platform. You don't actually own, these followers. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, if they shadow ban you or delete your account tomorrow, what are you going to do? And he just sat there and he kind of slumped into his seat. And he's like, I never thought about it like that. So I was like, you need to, migrate that into your ecosystem. So, and then what we've done is created experiences for him around his album rollout. So it's just like his label's giving him a few $1 million budget to market this album, right? Now that means that it's his chance to codify his fans and the rules and principles of his fans into his fan club, right? Which is, his server, which is owned by him, which is, built for him. So that's what we started to do. So what we've done is created these like kind of experiences wherever there's a link out on social media, for instance, where he can direct his fans and his super fans will click the link and they'll go into an experience, which will be a Web3 experience, which could be an AR, MR experience, right? Because we have these AR, MR libraries that we've built over the years to give these experiences. And then what we're doing is like, so we've built this really cool AI machine learning object recognition technology, right? It's great for video, but it's also great for these kind of AR experiences as well. So we're not relying on the camera of the phone to recognize certain things, right? So the way AR works is, you scan a trigger, for instance, when you lift your phone up, and then it'll shoot, play a scene file, and you have this kind of immersive experience. So layer that on with this algorithm that we've created. What Dave's going to do is he's going to get his fans to go watch his old music videos. So he's going to tell them on Instagram, hey, go watch my old music videos. Wherever you see these moments, like my name pops up on the screen or something like that, it's an AR experience, and all you have to do is sit there, watch my old music video, and scan it at the right time. So when that happens, this kind of immersive AR experience pops up with a pop-up shop with, of music, of merch and everything like that. But guess what he's done? He's figured out who his super fan is because that person's clicked on that link and they've gone into the experience. Once they go into the experience, it's built on Polygon, right? So he's kind of, he's got the ownership of the data and everything as well at the same time. And then he's creating new revenue with the merch, but he's also monetizing his YouTube video as well at the same time, getting his fans to go back and watch it again as well. So you're kind of creating this, fun experience, but the consumer doesn't know that, this is the experience I'm going through. They don't care. They're a fan. We've just made it easy for them to get there. So that's the kind of on-ramping, philosophy that we have for our enterprise clients, but then also we're adapting with our app as well.
So you in effect use these like Web2 platforms as being the launch pad into Web3 for to also identify the true fans.
Yeah, exactly. I think you have to, right? You go where the community is. You don't expect the community to come to you, right? And from like my days of running these family offices and investing in companies, that's where I used to look at. I used to always look at it like this, right? It's vitamins and painkillers, right? Technology. Do I need it? It's nice to have, or I need this, right? So from a Dave perspective, it's a painkiller because he sits there every day looking at 4 million people on his IG saying, well, who actually is my fan out of these, right? Which side, right? So now that's a painkiller for him. So now he's willing to push it to his fans, right? So that's one headache out the way. And then for his fans, it's like, give me something where I feel like I'm connected to you, right? Like listening to your music is cool because if I'm a Dave East fan, I'm probably a Nas fan. I'm probably a fan of this guy and that guy and so forth, right? But you're giving me something no one else is. So for the consumer, that's a painkiller as well because it's like I really want to be more immersive with what you're doing, and now you're giving me this experience and you're taking me along with it as well at the same time. So that's kind of a thought process. But there is a lot of vitamins, right, in Web3 right now. So it's like solutions looking for a problem, right? And I'm sure some of them will shake out and find that problem and solve it really, really well. We just, lucky to have the venture capital experience behind us between me and the other co-founders of saying, right, this is really good. It's really cool technology, but, where's the painkiller? And that's what we've been, spent time working out. And the same with the NFT market, why we didn't do a marketplace, because it was by then commoditized as a market anyway, because everybody and their mother had a NFT marketplace. But then there was the fact of how do you get Joe Public to go buy NFTs? So on our application front, we're actually, instead of having artist pages, we're creating fan clubs, and the accessibility of that fan club is actually an NFT. But you don't know as a consumer you're buying an NFT. You're just buying access to a fan club, right? And the reason why you're buying access to a fan club is because we've created this community chest where the artist is giving you a piece of them, right? So In Dave, for instance, he's doing his NFT project, but he's not selling it as the Dave East NFT to his fans. He's selling it as, hey, join my fan club. Here's what you're going to pay, but here's what you're going to get. And you get, as a community, you're getting a piece of his masters, right, for his EP that's coming out. You're going to be an executive producer of his next EP, and you're going to get behind the curtain access to the entire process of making an EP and releasing an EP, right? Which is, to his fans, is amazing because you're a part of the process now, right? Then you've got, like, some decision making in there, and that community chest is really a DAO, but we're not calling it a DAO, right? But that's what gets, because the thing is that the biggest barrier we create as Web3, community, as a Web3 community, is creating these acronyms and scaring the consumer. Because like, if I go and tell some of my friends, hey, buy this Dave East NFT, they're gonna roll their eyes. But if I say, hey, Dave East is in this fan club where you actually get to be a part of the process of creating his album, now all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's really cool. So that's kind of it. Because I always say, like, when you buy like an Apple product, like a Mac, right? You don't sit there and say, I bought an Intel inside. That's, for me, that's what NFTs are. It's technology behind the wall that no one cares about, that is an NFT from a consumer standpoint and a fan standpoint. And ultimately, we have to get their dollars and their activity into Web3 for it to be scalable and successful.
And so the way in which you're embracing Web3 technology here, it's, to a certain point, it's sort of experimental insofar as this is cutting edge technology. And whilst we're very bullish in terms of the potential of it, the end user, it's more about that experience and you finding ways to kind of bring these extra bits in, which have an upside for them, as well as the artists that you're representing with this as well, because they have this independence and they're not, this stuff's not being released on a platform in the kind of traditional sense. So you get that sort of best of both worlds. But I guess it's this early phase stuff, right, where there's a little bit more education and figuring out ways to simplify, as you say, the whole user experience and not label it all like an NFT or these Web3 specific terms and phrases.
Yeah, yeah. I always say to people, like, when's the last time you went to a website and said, oh my God, this is amazing. It's built on React, or it's built on Java, it's built on... You don't do that. You just go on the website, do what you want to do, and then you leave, right? And the same with apps as well, right? You don't sit there and start stripping the code away and before you use it to see if you're going to use it or not. And that's how, consumers, that's how their mind works. It's like, what is this going to give me if I'm parting with my time, effort, or money? What am I getting in return? If it's an experience or a product or something that's going to, be a painkiller for me, then I'm all in as a consumer. If it's a vitamin, then it's a 50-50 toss up. If it's if it's a straight headache for me to get involved, like, I'm not going to do it. And that's the other, that's why we just purchased this metaverse platform called Fly. And that's why we purchased it, because, I'm a gamer, right? So I play Axie, Decentraland, and everything like that. You have to go through too many steps to get there, right? It's just the process of getting there. So you're not creating a barrier to entry. What we saw with Fly was a Web2 platform that didn't know that it had a Web3 philosophy. And when it come across it, I actually saw the Series A documents, and I was just like, wow, you know what? Let me speak to the founder. When I spoke to the founder, I was like, dude, this is a Web3 company. You know that, right? And he was like, really? So, we got a good rapport going, and we started talking. And now, now that, it's taken 10 months, but we've made the acquisition, we're actually creating, I feel, a platform that's going to help onboard, millions of consumers into a Web3 ecosystem without them having to worry that it's a Web3 ecosystem, or that, each building in the map is an NFT. They don't care, right? But it's the experience of it being easy. It's mobile first, right? Because they built it on Unity. So, that helps as well, because I guess there's 7 billion people with connected smart devices around the world. That helps, right? And then the fact that, we're picking which mainnet we're going to build the rest of the infrastructure on. But that mainnet, to the kid that's using it, to the person that's using the actual metaverse platform, so they don't care, right? Like, but the functionality they care about. Oh my God, you know what? I could trade my building with my friend, or I could, buy an access ticket or digital ticket or whatever, but it's just an NFT to this building that Drake is doing a performance, and that type of stuff like that. So, that's kind of our thinking around. Web3.
Yeah, and you're really looking at the ways to bring all of this technology together. So I think that's a really good point for us to kind of wrap this up here in terms of just if people want to well, I guess experience the platform. Like you, of course, have dropTV, but what will that give them? Are there other places they should go if they want
Yeah,
to
I,
try this stuff out?
I
Drop to look out for.
really kind of understand what we're doing is go to droplabs.io. And that's like our kind of enterprise facing entity that has, some pretty cool major deals that we're announcing in the next couple of weeks or so.
And
And
that's drop with two P's on it,
yeah,
right?
two P's. Yeah, sorry, I can't spell. Actually stands for direct retail opportunity. So
Uh,
it wasn't a drunken mistake. But yeah, so that kind of gives you an idea of our tech stack of what we've created, and then you'll start to understand how we're creating an on ramp for Joe Public into Web3 without them being scared of acronyms and all types of stuff like that.
That's awesome to see. Yes, well, Gurps, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you
Likewise.
today, and just great to hear about the ways you're bringing all of these technologies together, but also bringing all these people onto Web3 without them realizing it. So that's definitely commendable.
I appreciate you. Thank you, man. Thanks for your time.
No worries, great to chat. Hi, it's Conor Svensson here again. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm really excited to share with you that I've written a book, The Blockchain Innovators Handbook, a leader's guide to understanding, adopting, and succeeding with this disruptive technology. I've been wanting to share my learnings about blockchain and Web3 for a number of years with a wider audience, and I'm really excited that I can do this now. This book covers everything from the fundamentals of the technology through to opportunity identification and implementation for your business to ensure that you can be one of the big beneficiaries of the wider transition to Web3 that's taking place now. The book is available in physical as well as digital form. For more information, head to web3labs.com/innovators.